Here is the antithesis of Las Vegas, Amman, Jordan, where water's lacking. An inhabitant of Amman consumes 15 times less water than an American, and this amount decreases yearly with the increase of the population. Amman, Beijing, Cairo, Mexico City. Did you know that we face a lack of water in half of our major cities in the world? And the most disturbing thing here is that 30 to 50% of water is wasted because of pipe leaks. Amman, Jordan's capital, had been built during the 20s. It used to be a village of 4,000 people, and now it's a big city with a population of 2 million people. Close to 50% of the country live here, without counting refugees from the war in Iraq, and they all have the same obsession: water. There is rationing. Each family has their tank, and in Amman, water is not distributed every day. In Amman, water has become an expensive product. Every day, 1,200 tank trucks cross the city to deliver water. Faucet or tap water only flows once a week in Amman. A Jordanian spends 10 times more money on water than a Frenchman.
بالنسبة لموضوع المي إنه يعني لما بدها تكون مرة بالأسبوع، ولما حتى بدها تيجي، لما بدها تيجي المي ما بتيجي مثلا إنه بدها تيجي يوم وثاني يوم بدها تضلها يومين، ما في، بتيجي بالليل لثاني يوم بالليل 9-10 لما تقطع، ويكون الواحد يعني عنده عائلة وأطفال، يعني موضوع مش سهل يعني.
How do you manage day by day? Tell me how you deal with this.
أول إشي بده يكون بالنسبة لموضوع الجلي. لموضوع الجلي إنه بالنسبة أول إشي بده يكون فتحة الحنفية شوي شوي، الغسيل بده يكون في يوم واحد، التنظيف الشطف كتير بده يكون في يوم واحد، التعزيل بده يكون طبعا في يوم واحد، لأنه بالصيف بده يصير الوضع كتير بده يختلف. الأطفال هدول بده الواحد دوام، يروح من الدوام بده ياخد حمام، وضع الصيف بالذات أكتر من هيك، بده تنظيف أكتر، يعني بده يكب الواحد مي أكتر.
Is the water collected good to drink? Is it good quality?
أنا متهيألي إنه يعني اللي عندهم تنكات نظيفة ممكن إنهم يشربوا، بس إحنا أول سبب أنا بقول يعني ممكن لأنه تنكاتي أنا صار لهم فترة إنه صدى، طبعاً ما بتقدر تنشرب من مرة، فمضطرين كمان إنه نشرب المي، نشتري شراء.
While this is happening, we French buy 6 million bottles of water a year because we don't trust tap water anymore. But either tap water or bottles, it's always been the same water which has flowed for 1 billion years, and this constant process is called the Great Water Cycle.
For fresh water, life starts in the oceans where 97% of the world's water is concentrated. Heated by the sun's rays, a fine film of water evaporates, leaving the salt in the sea. It then starts its long journey through the air in the form of steam, which condenses into clouds. When these tiny droplets which make up the clouds become big enough, they transform into rain or snow. Some of this water is imprisoned in glaciers. Today, they represent 2/3 of the fresh water which exist on the planet, a reserve we cannot access. The liquid water marks out its path towards the oceans. Over millions of years, its erosive strength has allowed it to form many contours, clearing a passage through the hardest of rock. Some of the water which flows on the Earth dives below the surface. If we exclude the glaciers, there is 100 times more fresh water under the ground than on the Earth. The Great Water Cycle, which seems to run so smoothly, unfortunately has a weak point. Water doesn't fall systematically at the same time, nor in the same places. In many parts of the world, water is lacking. In some parts, the climatic cycle alternates between seasons of heavy rain and dry seasons where it doesn't rain at all. The taps in the sky open and close suddenly. We call this the monsoon. In 1/4 of the year, 3/4 of the rain falls, a moment of rebirth for man and nature. Part of the fresh water present on Earth is unusable. Returned too quickly to the oceans, stored in the form of ice or too deep underground, it no longer participates in the water cycle. Like oil, water is not inexhaustible. So it's up to us to find the right solutions to stop water running through our fingers.
I'm flying over the Jordan Valley. It's always the same story. Here, water from the river has been diverted to irrigate fields and provide the towns. Result? The river flow has been divided 20 times, and only a small amount of water reaches the Dead Sea. Here we are, the world's most salty sea, but its level decreases a meter a year. Water from the Dead Sea is 10 times more salty than the ocean. These big white mushrooms that you can see here are the result of evaporation, leaving the crystallized salt behind. They are called evaporites. We're on the Israeli side of the Dead Sea. It's the lowest place on Earth, 412 meters below sea level. For 50 years, this sea has lost 30% of its surface area, and according to the experts, will disappear by the year 2050. Hi, Julie.
Bonjour.
Why is the Dead Sea disappearing?
La mer Morte disparaît parce qu'on a rompu un équilibre qui était millénaire. C'est-à-dire que chaque année, l'eau de la mer Morte disparaissait par évaporation, parce qu'il fait très chaud ici en été. Mais cette quantité perdue par évaporation était rendue à la mer Morte par le fleuve Jourdain, qui est son seul affluent. Depuis une cinquantaine d'années, Israël a détourné les sources du Jourdain et la Jordanie aussi, essentiellement pour développer l'irrigation à grande échelle. Donc le fleuve Jourdain n'est plus capable d'acheminer la quantité d'eau nécessaire pour remplacer l'eau perdue par évaporation. D'autre part, en aval, le phénomène d'évaporation est accéléré par deux compagnies qui littéralement traitent la mer Morte comme une mine et qui acheminent l'eau que nous voyons ici par un canal vers des bassins d'évaporation pour accélérer ce processus d'évaporation et récupérer les sels.
Salt collected from the sea contains a big amount of potassium, bromine, and magnesium. These raw materials are in much demand in the chemical industry and massively exploited by Israel and Jordan. But all these changes threaten species who have adapted to these extreme conditions and are unique on Earth. Is it important to save the Dead Sea, and what for?
Si vous considérez que c'est un écosystème unique au monde, parce qu'elle a beau être morte, on a un écosystème qui en dépend. Si vous considérez que la disparition de la mer morte entraîne des affaissements de terrain assez catastrophiques sur ces rives, on voit beaucoup de bonnes raisons d'essayer de sauver la mer morte. Par contre, sauver la mer morte n'a pas d'intérêt si on la considère simplement comme une ressource minière. Du moment qu'on a terminé d'exploiter la mine, on ferme la mine et on va exploiter autre chose.
Look how funny it looks. There's so much salt in the Dead Sea that you can float without having to learn to swim. I've seen tourists swimming in the sea, but at the same time I've heard that it was very polluted, so I don't really understand.
C'est que depuis le développement de l'irrigation et de l'agriculture à échelle industrielle dans la vallée de la mer Morte, on a évidemment les ruissellements des eaux agricoles usées vers le fleuve Jourdain, qui sont les seules eaux qui finalement maintenant sont acheminées encore vers la mer Morte. Elles sont évidemment très chargées en insecticides, en pesticides, en engrais, et il n'y a pas d'évacuation possible, puisqu'ici c'est le terminus.
Alors, il y a un grand projet.
So there's a project about building a canal which would go from here to the Red Sea to bring the water right here. What do you think about that?
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ce projet? Alors, c'est un projet en même temps.
It's quite a good idea in that Palestinians, Israelis and Jordanians would be working together.
Les Palestiniens, les Jordaniens vont travailler ensemble.
Oui, ils travailleraient ensemble pour acheminer l'eau de la mer Rouge à la mer Morte, qui n'a pas du tout la même concentration en sel. Ça changerait l'écosystème de manière irrémédiable et pour toujours. Ça ne sauverait la mer Morte que dans le sens où on remplirait un trou d'eau. C'est tout, comme vous remplissez votre piscine.
How will the water issue be resolved?
La seule solution serait d'accepter de vivre avec notre planète, d'accepter que la ressource n'est pas infinie et qu'on ne pourra pas simplement faire grandir éternellement les quantités d'eau qu'on veut allouer à l'agriculture ou à l'industrie ou à la consommation domestique. Accepter les limites de notre planète.
Julie is completely right. Today, vast lakes are almost dried out. I can remember when I took pictures of Lake Chad. Look what happened. It has lost 95% of its surface area within 40 years. Who's guilty? Dryness, dams, and irrigation. Where we could see a small sea is now a small lake surrounded by swamps. For the Aral Sea in Central Asia, it's the same story, but even worse. The sea was as big as the Netherlands and Belgium put together. The two rivers which used to flow into the sea have been diverted to irrigate cotton plantations. Result, the Aral Sea has almost disappeared. I took some surreal photos of these fishing boats abandoned in the desert. Added to this, the dust carried in the wind has contaminated lands for hundreds of kilometers around. Today, this disaster affects millions of people.